welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guest. And I got to tell you something. I was flipping around Facebook, and people kept saying to watch this show, Reacher. And I'd heard great things about it, so I said, you know what? I told Joanne, I said, I'm going to watch this show. She was watching Christmas stuff, whatever. And I ended up, I sucked into that hole. I ended up sitting there, and one weekend, I had like all eight episodes. And I remember I watched the finale like one morning when I should have been productive. And the one actor looked really familiar. And then it came to me that he was on a show that me and Joanne loved called Breakout Kings. And it was one of the things we were pissed off when it got canceled because we just really enjoyed it. And he's a great actor. And I'm glad to have him on, especially after Reacher. And my guest is Malcolm Goodwin. How you doing, man?
Hey, Steve, how's it going?
Good. Yeah, it's funny. I was like, he looks funny. We'll get to Breakout Kings. It was such a good show. But I want to ask you,
Thank you.
you know, Reacher was a hit. You know, then you go on strike. The strike happens. How did you deal with the strike? Because my friend Lex Medlin's in NCIS, in Vegas, the Vegas show, and he finally becomes a series regular, and they go on strike,
Right.
and he's like, oh, how did this strike affect you as an actor?
Well, as an actor, obviously, no work in terms of no work as an actor, but it gave me time as a writer, as a producer, as a director. Again, I used that time to develop other projects that would allow myself to give myself opportunities as an actor, as well as other people, and as well as crews behind the camera as well. So I used that time to develop a bunch of material, and also there were a couple of projects that I shot years ago, because I'm also a director, so I shot some independent projects throughout the years, and it gave me an opportunity to finish those projects and get them out there and get people to look at them and sell a couple of them. So that's how I used the strike. But as an actor, I couldn't do anything. So, obviously just supporting my fellow actors and supporting the union.
Now, let's talk about Reacher before we get about how you got into acting, because as I said, the show is great, and your character was great.
Oh, thank you.
And
I appreciate it.
what was the process for you getting that show? Because it's Amazon, so you're going into 8 episodes, and it's how did you go about it? Did you have to go through a long audition process, and what did you know about the character when you were auditioning? But tell me the whole process on how you got that role.
Well, I'll tell you something. It's connected to Breakout Kings, because the showrunner for Reacher is the showrunner for Breakout Kings. And Nick Santora, who's just a good friend, mentor of mine, and he's just been so supportive throughout my entire career. And I remember when Reacher got picked up in the trades, and I read about it, we talked about it, and he told me there may be a role that may be right for me, and I was like, cool, if it happens, if I'm available. I was on a show called iZombie at the time, so I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm supporting it either way. And then I think the pandemic delayed it, because I'm not sure I would have been available if it was shot in 2019, because I was working on another project. But the pandemic delayed it, and so it was shot in 2021. So I had to audition for it. I auditioned, put a tape together, and then had to do a Zoom. It was my first Zoom test call with the directors and producers in the studio, and it worked out. It worked out, and then we went out to Toronto a few months later and shot it for 6 months.
Now, as an actor, because you have stage background. Everyone has stage background. A lot of people stage and everything, and just acting, and you've acted. You're used to going into the room for an audition, okay? It's something I've talked to people who say there's a certain energy in the room, but then also in the tape, if you screw up, you can redo it. What do you like better? Actually, because you direct and you produce, so you probably have more of an eye for an actor than most actors do, because you book them. But what has been your thought process about the self-tape against in-room?
Steve, if you would have asked me this question prior to the pandemic, my answer would have been on tape. Now, after the pandemic, I'm like, in the room. There is something that I do. Being from the theater, I love seeing an audience, and you get that instant gratification. I I feel like my film and television career started off by me doing really good self-tapes. And so, like you said, I'm a director and I have film equipment, so I was able to add a flair to my auditions that probably other actors couldn't do because of just the technical side of things. That eventually got old once everybody had phones. They could film themselves, get ring lights, so that advantage went out the window. But I loved putting myself on tape and also being creative. There's some auditions where you can't make certain choices in that particular room because you don't know exactly what the room's going to present itself. Sometimes it's a chair, and you're like, well, I kind of rehearsed this standing up. We don't care. Sit down and put this live on and do the scene like that. And then you have to be flexible to make that decision like that. Or vice versa. You know, they go, we want you to stand up. You go, oh, I kind of learned this sitting down. We don't care. Stand up and do the audition. And so, you know, through experience, you learn how to just be adaptable in that room. And getting that immediate response from people and from the room is just addicting, especially as coming from the theater. But since the pandemic, now everything is on tape, and also the taping can be a trap because what happens is if you give yourself a thousand takes to do the audition, my rule was always to give myself 2 to 3. I'm giving myself 2 to 3 chances, and I'm making that a habit. I don't want to get into the habit of doing 50, 60 takes, and then I have to go into a room, and you only get one shot in the room. So I wanted to make that a habit. So my answer would be, it depends on the role. Some roles I think are suitable on tape, and there's some roles, probably the majority of them are better in the room.
Well, you know, it's funny when you said about, the 50 or 60 takes. I think once you get, like, your process is great, 2 or 3, because once you get past a certain point, it's going to get stale. I don't care what you say. Like, you can sit there, like me, I don't write out questions before my interview because it gets stale. But I think that's what's good. You have the good attitude, because I do think it's like anything. People just keep doing it. You lose that energy because there's something about, I do stand-up comedy. I only perform once in a while. But back when I was on the road, you get tired after a while. Now I just had a show last week and there's that energy because I haven't done it in like 3 months. So I think it's good that you keep it fresh.
Yeah, I always say, it's one of those things coming from theater. I'm like, theater happens in one take. Like you doing stand-up, that's one take. There's no do-over. That's you have to get through your set, you have to get through the show, and trying to make that habit. At least for myself, I was like, if I give myself that many chances, then I don't know how that affect my performance into the room where I know I got one shot at it. So I just want to, like you said, keep it fresh.
Now, what made you pursue acting? What kind of kid were you? Were you a kid who was, into sports, or were you into, what? Because I always wonder how actors become, a lot of actors I've talked to were athletes, but then they took an acting class, and there was always hot girls, and they said, "Oh, I'm going to stick with the acting." But what made you get into acting?
It happened through me writing. It was Black History Month. I wrote about Dr. Charles Drew, and I was already really good at writing. But I was 4th or 5th grade. The teacher was like, okay, we're going to have to recite it. You're going to have to memorize your essay. You're going to have to recite it. And I grew up with a really horrible speech problem. I stuttered, I stammered, and I spoke 1,000 miles an hour. And but on this particular day, when I memorized it, I said my essay in front of this audience, and everyone's mouths dropped, and they applaud, and everyone was like, "That's the first time we've ever understood a single word you said." So apparently, and then it happened again. My teacher was like, memorize this. I memorized something else, and apparently you talk different when you memorize things versus when you're just talking in life. And I was like, when I grow up, I want to be a narrator, and lo and behold, that led to acting. It was through speech. It was through communicating. It's where I felt comfortable. It's where I can do impersonations of my mom, my dad, my friends, my aunties, and sneak those personalities into these characters and express myself. But I was a quiet kid. And the only times I was loud was on stage, and that's essentially how it happened. I think I really got serious about it in high school. I had auditioned for LaGuardia High School. I'm from New York. I'm from New York City. Born and grew up in Brooklyn and Harlem. And I had auditioned for what was it? I had auditioned for the voice department or something for singing, and I confused drama with voice. I thought drama was another word for singing. So I was like, hey, there's another word for singing is drama. So I'm like, I'm going for drama. I went there and sung a song in front of all those folks. And they're sitting there like, well, that was nice. You have a nice tone, but where's your monologue? And I didn't have any monologue prepared. And a few days after that audition, I had an audition at Julia Richmond High School in Manhattan for drama. And so I had to learn a monologue really fast. And I asked one of my teachers, what's a monologue? She gave me Raisin in the Sun. I learned that monologue in that play really fast. And I went in front of my professors there and was terrible. But they saw something. I had one moment. They told me to improv, and I fell in love through theater at that program, Julia Richmond High School Talent Unlimited program, and the rest is history.
Because then you went on to SUNY Purchase.
Yeah, then I went on. I took some years off, took some time off after graduating school to produce some plays. I had an opportunity to do some plays and some other work, and I was into music. And then 6 years after graduation, I went back to college I picked one school. I said, if I get into this school for theater, then I will 100% give my all. And that was back in 1999. And I went there. I took an old monologue from high school that I hadn't done in years. And long story short, I got in. They auditioned anywhere from 7,000 to 8,000 students to only pick 24, 25. And I was one of the 24, 25 picked. And it changed my life.
So when you get out of school, and I people say this a lot, when you go to school and for acting, they teach you how to act, which of course, but they don't prepare you for when you get out. Like they don't prepare you, here's how you get an agent, here's how you do this. So what was that like when you graduated? Because did you sit there and as soon as you got out from SUNY, did you sit there and start really pursuing trying to get TV and movies, or were you still in that theater area?
I was 100% film and TV. I was so burnt out with theater. I loved all the performances and plays we did in college, but I was burnt out. So I was full-fledged, just tunnel vision, film and TV, because I had never really given that a shot. I had an opportunity years ago. In high school, I went on little auditions here and there and did one big movie called Color of Justice. I had an open call audition that they had, I don't know how many callbacks, about 40 callbacks it felt like. And I ended up getting the part and doing that. And so I had experience behind the camera. Working in film on one production. But after college, it was just kind of putting my head down and being 100% serious about it. So I found my manager, who I'm with to this day, Manager Jacoby, MJ Management, and she believed in me and she taught me. I didn't really have any experience in that regard with the business. I just followed her lead, and she guided me and got me to where I'm at now.
So how did you deal early on with the frustration? Because, as you know, you can come off a hit TV show, and in this day, you still have to audition. My friend wrote for Queen of the South, and I think they were like auditioning Max Van Sydow, and he's like, the guy's won an Oscar. What are we doing this?
Right.
It's crazy. When you were younger, how did you keep the focus? Because, were you getting a lot of work? You weren't getting a whole bunch of work to start, were you?
No, I wasn't. I was going out but I was so busy. The thing is, when I got out of school, I also started a production company. And that was always the balance, I'm a filmmaker, and I'm always working on something. I'm always editing something. I'm always shooting something. I'm always writing something. A lot of I didn't really feel a lot of that. Found a way to create, and that was always my thing. I'm gonna create by any means, and it'll be nice to be on a TV show, book a movie, but if I'm not, I'm gonna create. wait these tables to pay the bills, and sometimes some gigs would some of the production gigs would help a little bit. But I know for myself, I was always just patient. You know, I just always believed in timing. If there's any frustration, it's like whenever you're close, they're like, oh, you're the number two, you're number two, you're number two. I cannot tell you there was like a good 15 auditions in a row where they're like, you're the second pick, you're the second pick. And no one, when you watch a film, you'll never know who was the other guy. Who was the other guy that, that was up for that role against who actually had it. So that part early in my career became was frustrating at some point. But then I got over it, and then I think probably the opportunity that set everything off was American Gangster. Once that happened in 2006, it's been nonstop, fortunately.
Tell me about your experience on American Gangster. What happened?
Oh my goodness, I'm telling you, I was super intimidated. I was nervous. You got Denzel Washington, you got Russell Crowe, you got Ruby Dee, you got Joe Morton. I mean, Ridley Scott. I booked that off tape. That was a tape that I did. It was I think the scene was one day. I mean, it was a one-page scene. But what I did was I did an improv of what I thought would happen before. It was like, and they don't watch it. They don't watch it. And it made it all the way to Ridley Scott's desk. He saw it, and after a long process, I got it. But to sit there and watch Denzel work and Russell Crowe, I just watched how detailed they were. I watched how serious and focused they were. It was a very serious set, and we followed their leads. Watching Russell Crowe, I felt like I worked with him the most because he worked the first. It was a 3-month shoot, and the first 90 days with Russell Crowe, and then the second 90 days was Denzel. So it was working closely with Russell, and I was honestly supposed to only be on that set for literally one day. One day turned to 3 months. I was supposed to go. I was only in the piano scene, what eventually became the piano scene. That was it. But Ridley, he liked me. He was just like, I got this. We need to have someone who kind of essentially becomes a snitch. And he started just adding me in scenes and including me in scenes. So I went there, went back. I had moved to LA just to fly back to New York to do American Gangster. And, went there. I was happy I had to give up my place, and I, bought my own ticket there. And, but I just learned, I felt like how to be a professional on set, how to carry myself as an actor and try to inspire the other actors to work and just bring a level of focus and dedication. And I said, wait a minute, I need way more dedication and focus than what I was bringing prior to American Gangster. Way more. Well, and I got that from watching those guys.
It's funny you say that because actually back in the when I did comedy, I used to work the door at a comedy club in Philadelphia, and we would watch like Tim Allen as he was breaking, and all these acts come in, and you'd watch, and the same thing as you said, you go, this little crap I'm doing is not cutting it. And it's funny, a lot of actors don't look, and especially younger, don't look into the mentorship anymore. And so many actors who've been around say, even they can be working for 30 years. They go on set, and if they're working with like a Gene Hackman when he worked or whatever, they sit there and they would say, we would go just to watch the scenes because you learn so much.
Absolutely, yeah. And what a gift that was for me just to kind of sit there and, I didn't have a lot to say in those scenes at all. I'm just present. And there are scenes where in that movie where I'm in the scene, you just don't see me. But just to watch, just to sit there and watch. And one thing with Denzel and Russell, they were very inclusive of everyone in terms of if you are in this scene, you are involved, whether you're saying a word or not. If you're breathing and you're in this scene, then you are a part of the process. So it was inclusive in that way. And so I learned a lot. And I felt like that took me to another level, just in terms of I got to work harder. I got way more dedication, way more focus, way more preparation, and also flexibility and adaptability. Just watching them take a scene that's on the page and adapting it to the environment and to what's happening and having that superpower. I go, oh my gosh. this scene is way better than what I thought it was going to be. I'm like, I would have done it just like this, without adding a single thing. But the room changes it. The wardrobe changes it. The environment changes the entire thing, and about bringing it to life, and how that was so important to them, for them to do. So that's one thing that I try to bring to every set that I'm on.
So you're working. And then, well, tell me about Breakout Kings, because it was a really cool show. It's one of those things. When I met my wife, for a while I was bi-coastal. I go back once every month, and then she came to LA. And I'm not sure if she was in LA when that came out, but we just found it, and I think it was on A&E. It's, if I remember.
Yeah, A&E.
And it was just one of those. My wife loves regular TV, and she goes, "Oh, we got to watch this show," and it just caught us because it was, it was just a fun, good show. There's some shows you sit there and go, they're real dark, but this was just a fun, good show with action. Was that a long audition process, or how did the whole role come about?
Yeah, that was an audition process too. That was my first time being in front of Nick Santora and Matt Olmstead. They were the producers and creators of Breakout Kings. Yeah, that was my first pilot season too. I never had a pilot season when I came to LA. It was like LA was I was just doing a bunch of films and never had it. Always was doing a film during pilot season. It's always worked out like this. Now it's 2000 and was that 10?
10 or 11.
And yeah, it was 2010. And so I go in, I audition. I went in a couple of times, and then you're asked to test, and then you see this amazing contract. I'm like, oh my gosh, what? And it makes you nervous, like, oh Lord. And long story short, I got the role. I got the role, and it was so many, a lot of studio reads, network reads with the entire cast to make sure that it worked. And we shot that in Toronto again, where we shot Reacher. One cool thing about Reacher was reunited with some of the crew from Breakout Kings. They worked on Reacher, so that was really, really cool. But that was my first introduction of how working on the show, episode by episode. We shot 6 days. Each episode was shot in 6 days. So it was a lot of, you had to know your stuff, get it done in 1 or 2 takes. And I loved it was my first exposure to working that way. And I was like, let's do it. So it was awesome. It was great. I'm friends with that cast and obviously Nick and everybody, to this day. So, oh man, it was fun. What a blast. What a fun show that was.
Now, what was it like for you when it got canceled or it ended? And that always pisses me off, like when you're watching a show and it ends. What was it? Did you know did you see the writing on? I mean, you know how it is. Sometimes you're like, oh, this is a great show, and then it ends, and you go, well, we never know what happened. We never know what happened to Rob Lowe and that. But what was the process? Because you guys did, what was it, 23 episodes, I believe.
Right. Yeah, it was season 1, 13. Season 2 was 10. Yes. So
when I'm sure it was a big high when you got picked up for season 2. Because you're like, right. Great, and because it did well, but you don't. One of the things is you don't really think of A&E as going to watch a series, because A&E is always like intervention or a biography or that kind of crap.
Right.
But when you guys got the second season, were you expecting the show to go longer? Because it seemed like it was fun and it was a great cast.
Right, we didn't know. I tell you what, A&E saved the show. I'm not sure if I'm mistaken or not, but I think it was probably one of the first, dramatic series, episodic that they picked up, because originally Breakout Kings wasn't picked up. It was done by Fox, and it wasn't picked up. We got the call that the show. I'm up season 1. We read in the trade. We got the phone call from Nick and read in the trades that Breakout Kings is gonna get picked up. Then a month and a half goes by. We get a phone call like, "Hey guys, A&E picks us up." So A&E had saved the show from cancellation, from ever getting picked up. But getting that season 2 was obviously super exciting, and getting canceled, we didn't. I don't know. Obviously, it's it's disappointing. Especially being fans of the show, we want to know who ratted on Zankinelli, which is out there. I still want to know the answer. I still think that there's a Breakout Kings movie that needs to be made to answer that question. It's a cliffhanger. But it's we didn't really hang on to it too long. Kind of sat there and said our goodbyes, and it was time to move forward. Breakout Kings set up such a great launching pad for all of us to do more work. So so it was just kind of just being grateful for what it was, for what it provided, and then just being open and ready to accept what's ahead.
Now, what was it like working with Lombardozzi? Because he seems like a really nice guy, but he seems like he's really intense on set. Like, because you hear from The Wire and stuff. What was the scene? What was he like working with?
Dom is the nicest guy, man. I'm talking about he's the sweetest. He's a gentle, kind soul. I mean, I know a lot of people think that, oh man, this guy's gonna be super tough and everything, and he knows it too. I'm like, no, this guy is. He played those characters, man, but this guy is a soulful, just a warm, kind-hearted dude. He takes his work very seriously. He always comes prepared. Always comes with ideas. I always say that me playing detectives in this part of my career, part of my biggest influence is watching Laz Alonso and Dom, do it for 2 seasons on Breakout Kings and taking notes and saying, okay, if I'm ever in that position, I'll try that, I'll do this, I'll do that. But Dom is, he's authentic. He's just a pure kind soul. So it was crazy.
So after,
and it was
go ahead.
And obviously, it was great. It was great to see, obviously that he's in Reacher season 2.
Right,
so
which I watched that in like 3 days. Well, I couldn't.
Right.
See, the finale's on Friday. I was like, I started streaming it, then I go, shit, I gotta wait a week. I don't like this. So you're working after Breakout Kings. iZombie. Tell me about iZombie, because it ran for a while. So you're coming off. You don't have that much of a difference, that time off between series. I mean, you have a little time, but for an actor,
right,
you got to be happy that you came off one, and then you got the momentum. And a lot of times, actors don't strike 2 series like 5 or 6 years in between.
I know. Yeah, right after Breakout Kings, then I did a bunch of movies and guest spots, and then a year and a half later, I got iZombie, and I remember auditioning for iZombie because I had this crazy title, and I'm like, what's that? And this crazy premise. So when you read it on paper, it just sounds a little bit too absurd. Like, what? This girl's going to eat brains and she gets visions, and this detective helps her solve the crimes of the victims of brains she's eaten. That sounds like a stretch. Until I read the script. Robert Don Thomas and Diane Ruggiero Wright. Until I read the script, and I said, oh my goodness. So I went there. I didn't know whether it was going to work out. I figured I had nothing to lose, and I just kind of went for it. And it was a long process. It was a long testing process. Once you get to that test date, you go in the morning to meet with the director, and then you're invited to the first test. And you got a room full of, I don't know, maybe about 20 people. And then you leave, and you see the other potential Clive Babineaux and Liv Moore. You see everybody else who's up for it. And I know I didn't look like anybody. We all brought different things. So I'm like, okay, I'm more of the edgy kind of option. This person is more clean cut. This person is like pure comedy. It was just like different types, and which for me makes it easier because I'm like, oh, I just have to do what I do. But I think it was about 10 hours. It was a 10-hour day of going back and forth before you make it to the network and the studio session. And what was nice was, when you leave, it was down to like 2 of us, and then I left, and I found out that I got it. And it was one of the most, I'm talking about a 5-year run on that show, and I can't say we expected that. I thought, we're happy with 1. And then when we got 2, we were shocked. We was like, we're definitely not going to get 3. We don't know if this is going to happen. If we get 3, we're all going to get tattoos. And then we got 3. and 4 and 5. In season 5, we were like, we have to get these tattoos now because season 2, we said we got season 3, we would get these tattoos, so we got to keep our karmic energy good. And so Raul and I, we went and got tattoos to keep that promise.
Now, what did you like about the character?
I like the fact that playing Clive around so much, it was playing more dry comedy and playing the straight man, and how Clive evolved to that. Because I'm telling you, I wanted to laugh every single. I mean, when in rehearsals, I'm cracking up, I'm laughing, having a good time. But then on action, I got to pull it all in. So I like how reserved he was. I love and grounded, and just being grounded and trusting in that. You know, sometimes playing the straight man is difficult because you want to play too. I want to be in on the joke too. But you need someone. You know, there's always someone. Someone's not always in on it, and that was my character who wasn't in on the joke or in on what was happening. And so, like Clive Babineaux thought he was on Law and Order or something. But I just like that how grounded he was, and also his sense of right and wrong. And I think that's a correlation between Clive Babineaux and Oscar Finley, is they have a strong sense of right or wrong, and also myself. So that was easy to connect to, and that's what I liked about him.
Well, on that show, and even Reacher, have you had the freedom to improv? And because you are a writer and you're a director, so even when you read a script, I'm sure sometimes you have a different take on it because you go,
right,
I would write it. But so have you been lucky enough to work with directors who have let you improv a little bit, where you can actually bring in some of your own creativity, that you're not just some guy going, oh, I can do this. You write, you direct, you produce. Have you had that chance in projects to bring some of your creativity and the freedom to improv a little bit?
Definitely. More in film. Definitely in film. The big scene in American Gangster, for example, the piano scene with my character, that scene wasn't written like that. Originally, what was supposed to happen was I was supposed to fall into a glass table. Denzel hits me, I fall into a glass table, and that's it. It evolved into that because I remember Denzel were going back and forth, and a lot of that scene is just improv, going back and forth with the guy touching my girl's booty. And that's all improv, and that's all improv. You know, really it was like, just go, say whatever. And then Denzel comes over, and I happened to fall into that piano by accident. And Denzel came over, it was like, and this is during rehearsal, he was like, hey, wouldn't it be crazy if I just come over and bang, 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 and just bang his head with the, with the top of the piano. And then Ridley came and said, that's brilliant, let's do that. They got rid of the glass table that I was supposed to fall into. And that scene became this classic scene. But that came from, Ridley and Denzel essentially coming up with this moment through improv, the environment. But mainly through film. TV, I always say, didn't need an improv in iZombie because the writing was too good. I can't. The writing was too good. The writing is better than any improv I could do. There gonna be moments and there gonna be moments and things like that, but not too heavy on the dialogue. And the same thing for Reacher. Didn't have to improv a single Oscar Finley line. The writing was too good. And that's also great. But maybe little moments here and there. But I feel like film, you have a little bit more opportunity to do more to do more improv and to say more.
I want to get to Reacher now, because it's so funny. Your character, you don't like you when you come in at first. I mean, that must be great as an actor. You like, because you want to root for Reacher, and that the show is called Reacher, and so you watch it.
Right.
But then you really, you ingratiate yourself to people, and they're like, he's a good guy. He's right. But what is that like when you got cast in that? Did you know the whole arc of your character for the series, or did they only go episode by episode for you? So where you walked in the first scene where you're like, you just walk into the diner and you're like, you're like the guy and you're the antagonist. So people are going, yeah, we don't like this guy, even though it's. I mean, so what? How did you know? Did you know how your character was going to arc through the series at all, or were you told that in the beginning, or was it just blindsided each episode where you saw how your character took off, and all of a sudden you and Reacher were like cool together?
It was when I booked the character, when I booked the role, I knew. And what was great about the pandemic is it was my first experience working on shows where you get to read the entire arc of the character. In episodic, usually you don't know what, iZombie, I didn't know exactly what was going to happen with Clive and when it was going to happen with Clive. I think it's a journey for the writers and the actors. But after the pandemic, you have okay, here's all 8 episodes. So I knew the entire arc, which was awesome because I get to play the entire arc. Everything that Finley is, especially when you first meet him, is how Reacher describes him. He's, especially in that first episode, he goes, you're tightly wound up, you're irritable, you're all these things, and that's exactly what Oscar had to be, because obviously he's hiding something, and he's this penance that he's putting himself through that you eventually find out why he is the way he is. But knowing the entire arc before the season began it was like a cheat code. You get to play the entire, you get to play all those beats and moments and plan those accordingly versus not necessarily knowing. Because I don't know how Oscar would have been played if I didn't know where he was going to end. I don't know how necessarily if it would have been like that. But thankfully, we had all the episodes. And I think for all the actors, just playing an entire arc, it's kind of like, doing a play. It's like I know exactly where I'm going to go at the end because I'm playing that entire thing. So there's parts of Reacher for me that kind of felt theatrical in that preparation sense because I'm prepared for all 8 acts. I know the entire through line of the character. So it allowed me to have a lot of fun and also commit to things, even when Oscar is being difficult and why he's being difficult and why he's yelling at Reacher when Reacher just found out his brother died and why he can just be tunnel vision on, okay, I need to figure out this situation. I need to put this case ahead of that and get down to the bottom of things. So I think it just helped me flush out a more detailed and well-rounded character.
How big is the guy who plays Reacher? Like he's like, how tall is he?
I was like 6'4" in real life.
Now, is that weird when you do a scene with someone who's that? Because you're not used to someone. He's an imposing person. I mean, I don't care how good of an actor. When you see someone like that, you're like, holy crap. Like, I mean, what is it like playing in scenes with someone that big? Because it's just, we automatically get intimidated usually if someone's that big.
The thing was, he's a big dude. And also, Alan's the nicest and most, he's a really great, he's hilarious. He's a funny dude. So he does it, it's funny, he can sit there and just relatable, he just can steal your heart. He's just so likable. So it's one of those things where, and then he goes to Reacher, and you go, "Wait a minute, you're a big dude." You realize how big he is when he plays the character. But no, for me, it was easy. Obviously, Reacher's supposed to be that big, and Oscar thinks he's that big too himself. Although Oscar's small, but Oscar has no fear or anything to it. So it felt really great to sit there. And Oscar Finley is like, I'm going to chop this big old man down with my words, with my more stature to chop away at. So for me, I loved it. I'm not going to say it wasn't intimidating. It just made it more real.
Now I'm a guy who plays with his wedding ring. And there's a few scenes where you're spinning it. Now, was that your idea, or was that in the script? And how hard? I mean, you were spinning the ring pretty good. It was going for a while. I mean, was that your idea, or was that the writing? And is that something where you have to actually practice that? Because it's something that...
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's in the writing. Nick Santora, he did that his days as a lawyer. and he did a video for me of him spinning the Reading Wing and how he wanted it to spin, and I had to sit there and practice it. And then I sent them practice videos once I got it. But no, that was in the script. That was from his actual life.
Now, through the season, you start getting physical and you start shooting stuff. And now, do you have to prepare for that? Like, I mean, what was the whole? Because if you look at the show, it's not like there's these elaborate sets. But when you look at the action scenes, they're elaborate. You take them. I mean, as we say, I was talking to a friend of mine. It's once again like Breakout Kings. It's fun violence. It's not like, oh my God, you like it, somewhat, even if you're anti-violent. But when you see a script like that, do you have to start like getting in shape because you have to get really physical? I mean, how do you go about preparing that? Because it's not like a role where you're just singing or dancing in theater. I mean, you have to. It's high end.
Well, I tell you what, one of the rules Nick Santora told me, I think he did an interview about this too. He was just like, because I'm in the gym. I stay fit. I'm in the gym. No gym for Oscar Finley. Nick said, I do not want to see one muscle. We have a joke that plays in the last episode, and it doesn't play if you have muscles. So no weight. So I didn't lift any weights. There was no weightlifting. There was just only treadmill, being on a treadmill, and going on long pandemic walks with my wife and son. So throughout Toronto, and that was it. Our stunt team was great in terms of just at the final fight. We started practicing that fight from the very first episode, so it was great to literally have 5 months of practice, of rehearsal of that fight scene, so that when we got there on the day, we've been rehearsing it for 5 months, so we felt very, very comfortable with it. We had the win for it. So even when things changed during it, but it was fun. It was fun to do.
Now, do you worry when all the stuff's blowing up around you? I mean, how do you shoot that? Because that last scene is pretty damn intense. Like, you sit there, I'm not going to go spoiler anyone, but, it's not like, okay, a good friend of mine's Jason Aldean's drummer. So when he plays, sometimes flames shoot up, and I go, and he goes, it's really hot, but you get used to it after every night. But what was it like shooting a scene like that? Because there's so much shit going on, and it's just boom, boom, this, this. I mean, how as an actor, how do you keep focused on that scene, or are you just so into the character and just having fun?
Listen, I felt like Bruce Willis from Die Hard. We kept saying that. It was like, this is homage. Finley is playing homage to Bruce Willis. John McClane character in Die Hard, with the wife with the tank top and the shoulder holsters, gun holsters. It was a lot of fun, man. There was things. You got things sparkling all around us. You got all this fake smoke all around the web, all around. Yeah, it's fun. It was a good time, and how it really looked, and how the set, what the set looked like was for that last scene was amazing. Also, I wanted to tell you, I think all of Margrave was a set. That entire town is built. That's an entire town sitting on, I think, 130 acres somewhere. I'm sorry, Toronto. I forget what part of town that was, but somewhere in the burbs of Toronto. But when we're driving, I thought, wow, this looks really like Georgia. Like, this really looks like a little, and they were like, I'm like, how'd y'all make this look? This looks, where'd y'all find this? They were like, we built it. Traffic lights, police stations, that entire, and I'm like, how big is this? 60 acres. It's probably the largest backlot ever built in Toronto. I was like, what? But when you're on that set, you feel like you're in a town, and it's all literally built. It's all set pieces. All set pieces. So when you're watching Reacher Season 1, where we're on Margrave, we're on a soundstage. We're on a backlot that they built because of COVID, because it was COVID too. So we couldn't shoot on so many locations. So they had to build it right there. And it was incredible. Incredible.
Now, did you get injured at all? And then in your shooting, was there any hits that you took that you didn't expect to take? Because I always wonder, I don't care how good stunt people are, there's going to be a screw up, and an actor not expecting it, it must throw you off a little bit.
No, thankfully, no, I didn't get injured at all. The closest I felt to anything was probably the first episode. I got to really see how strong Alan is, because Alan pops Finley in his chest just a little bit. I felt that. I was like, when I'm like, keep my wife's names out of your mouth. Then he pops me in my chest with his fingers. I was like, this is a strong man, because that little pop to my chest almost concaved my chest. I'm like, I didn't tell anybody. This is my first time talking about it. I was like, oh my goodness, I do not want to be on the wrong side of Alan Ritchson. This dude is strong. My goodness. But no, I didn't get injured. I didn't get hurt. Everybody was professional, and thankfully no accidents happened. Accidents always happen, but thankfully it didn't happen.
Now, did you like your wardrobe choices? Because it's very,
yeah.
I mean, it's a very classic East Coast look. It's very, as you see your characters from Boston, and that's when you think of people from Boston. We used to think back in the '80s, wide whale corduroys. You think of that look. But did you like it? Because it's you're wearing layers all the time, man. It must be like, man, Reacher's got a T-shirt and jeans. I got to do all this shit with layers.
I loved it, man. I felt like the Black Sherlock Holmes, as Reacher said. I felt great. It puts you back. It puts you right in. It's easy to lock in when all that is right. I mean, building a character is more than just what's happening internally; it's what's happening externally. And then, so for the wardrobe and hair, makeup, everybody putting that entire look together, and that's all Nick Santora. Nick was crystal clear on how he wanted Oscar Finley to look, and being in that felt like I felt like, how can you not? I don't think I can wear tweed ever again in life without feeling like Oscar Finley, and transforming into that character. It just straightens you up, straightens your back. It just cleans up your speech. It just it just makes you more serious, more focused at the task, whatever task it is at hand. But it was great. It was hot during the summertime, obviously, because we started filming towards the end of winter into spring, getting into spring, and so I was nice and warm during the cold days, and then when the summertime hit, woo, definitely was method acting on that part. It was definitely hot, some sweaty days, but a lot of fun.
Now, were you bummed when you knew, because you knew it was only going to be, I mean, you come back to second season, but were you bummed when you found out it was over? Because it was such a character, and it just looks like a fun show. Because it's not like you did a bad job, it's just that the series is changing. There's no more room. They're not going to stay in, Georgia the whole time.
Right.
What is it like when you have such a great experience and you go, shit, man, this was so fun, and now I'm not, I mean, you came back for one episode, but it's like, you're done. How does that feel as an actor? Because is it like you're breaking up with a girlfriend because you're like, oh my God, I'm leaving now and I'm not going to see them again?
Well, we knew, like Will and I knew from when you sign a contract. We knew from the beginning. So we knew. So thankfully, we didn't have to find out after doing the season. So we knew going into it. We knew going into the season that it was going to be, and obviously we can talk about it when the show was going. But yeah, we knew before being hired that we were only on for one season, and that every season was going to be a different book with a different group of characters. Which book, we weren't clear on that, but we knew that our characters weren't going to be in it because my character only appears in one book, which is the first book. But he doesn't appear in any other book. So I knew going into it, so I didn't feel any... I tell you what, being invited to do a cameo for season 2 was exciting. That was awesome because I didn't think I would ever wear the tweed again. And I mean, and Nick did tell me that I think we're gonna bring Oscar back. He's gonna do a cameo for season 2. So he did give me a heads up at some point right before season 2 started filming, and I'm like, hey, I would do it in a heartbeat, and then it happened. But like I said, we knew before we even signed the dotted line that we were only on for one season.
Because now the show is really popular. Streaming is huge, and because the strike helped that because there's nothing to watch. Has that upped your stock in Hollywood? Has that done, has people now that may have not known you, casting directors may have not known you, are you getting more heat now because the show is so popular? I think if you're part of a hit, you're an ingredient that they go, well, he's doing something right. Because if you have a character like Reacher, and if you sucked, people will go, oh, this people wouldn't be watching the show. Have you felt some heat since it's been so popular?
I have, yeah, and I'm grateful for everything. It's been, I've done some amazing projects since Reacher, and it's definitely opened the doors to more opportunities, and I think it also just highlights the different characters that I play. I do take pride in playing a different variety of characters. So, and I don't wear my characters. People, meaning that you don't know that I'm that guy. You can meet me at a Walmart, see me at a Walmart, and don't realize that I'm the guy from Reacher. And then you could talk about iZombie and realize that, wait a minute, you're the guy from iZombie? Oh, wait a minute, you're the guy from For the House of Usher? Wait a minute, you're the Breakout Kings guy? And so there's, people don't realize that I'm the same guy. And for me, I love that. I take that as a compliment when people don't recognize me from all these different projects, or that they go, wait a minute, you look so different. Oh, that was a complete different person. So I think it's just in terms of, it has opened up a lot of opportunities, and I'm grateful for. I've worked on some projects that I'm super excited for, and just a variety of characters in different roles. So and the answer is yes. It has opened up some great doors.
So when you look back at your career, because I always like to ask this question, what is one of the highlights of your career? I mean, besides working with Denzel and Russell Crowe, which would be a highlight. I mean, they're two, rock stars of actors. What's been a really highlight of your career when you sit there and you go, man, because you've been lucky. You've been on 3 series, and you're a young man in acting, whereas I know character actors who are 60 who are working, but they've never had 3 series. They go from show to show. But what has been one of the highlights when you sit back, and what has made it worth you taking on the life of an actor? Because no matter what people think, me and my wife were talking about this, and that's actually out with a character actor who was visiting in Philly, his son, and we were talking how everyone thinks actors are all rich, and it's like, no, they aren't. They'll make money, but they aren't. But you make a commitment. So looking back, what is a highlight to you that makes the commitment that you've made with the art worth it?
Working with young people and giving young people an opportunity. I work with a lot of young filmmakers and young actors. And so a lot of my highlights come from being able to leave the door open for other people and seeing, it's, I want to give you a real answer for this. Every answer has been real, but a moment that made me go, I'll tell you, I know what it is. I know what it is. So during the pandemic, my little sister, who raised 3 girls in Dallas, Texas, came to L.A. The kids are all grown now, and she's empty nesting, and she was a writer, in high school, and kind of just dipped and dabbed throughout the years, but it never was a career thing. She was a full-time mom. Long story short, the kids are out empty nesting, and I'm like, come to LA, get back into writing. She goes, oh no, it's too late or whatever. I'm like, come on, get into it. Come and give it a shot. I bring her some sets and things. We'll see what happens. And then she comes in 2020, and then the pandemic happens. I'm like, oh. All right. I said, well, this is the time to sit down and just we're gonna just skill up. And that was the agreement in the home. We're all gonna just skill up. So I started off. A lot of people don't know I'm also an editor. I've been editing for tons of years. I'd say if I was an actor, I would probably be a full-time editor. That's what I would do. But that's a whole other story. So, but I have everything. I still edit projects and stuff. I go on a different name and things like that. But long story short, I taught her how to do it. I taught her how to edit. and then she started coming on board as my assistant on a bunch of projects, and she actually worked on Reacher too. You know, she worked as my assistant on Reacher, and long story short, you know, now she's working for a big studio in LA full time, and that made me go. The fact that she's been there for the last 2.5 years thriving, it made it all worth it. It's about letting other people through, other people getting through doors that I have opportunities to leave open behind me. Getting through makes it all worth it, and it makes me want to keep driving going forward. I'm working with this young filmmaker who has a film called The Painting. It's a short film, his first film. It's gotten to 13 film festivals in the last 3 months. That makes it worth it for me. That makes it worth it. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. See, I love stories like that. It's always good then when you help people out. I always, it's always good. I mentor a lot of younger podcasters, and I help them get guests because I've been lucky. I lived in LA, so I met a lot of people. I have a background in entertainment. But for a lot of people, they don't know how to do it. And it does make you feel good when someone says, hey, man, thanks for getting me that person. And just for you, that's a great story.
Yeah. And there's just been so many moments like that. It's been more about, I don't know, it's been more about other people benefiting from it and seeing that the dream, that my dream can make other people's dreams come true. And keep paying it forward, and that process keeps happening. No matter, and obviously there's tough days, or whatever, and it's just like, no, that makes it all worth it. All I need to do is just lock into one of those situations, and then I'm good. Whatever may be bothering me or whatever, it goes away just like that.
This has been awesome, Malcolm. Anything coming up? What can we see? I mean, people go, if you haven't watched Reacher, go watch Reacher. I mean, I always go, everyone talks about it, so go watch Reacher. But any other projects coming up?
Yeah, we have Netflix's for the House of Usher, so definitely check that out. That's a reunion between Raul Coley and I, and that show's been doing well, and All the Love has been great, and got a feature film coming out called Retribution. That's a fun one, and another film called The Great Wall of Warren that'll be out soon. There's a lot of films coming out. So I've done a lot of feature films over the last year and a half. So I can't wait for everybody to see them.
So people, keep your eye on Malcolm. I always say also go to IMDb, look up Malcolm Goodwin, and just go and look at his work. Look at his past work, and you see what it's all about. Are you on Twitter or X? What do they call Twitter or any of that, or Instagram? You on there?
Yeah, I am. I'm under it's Malcolm J. Goodwin.
So people, go follow Malcolm. Follow me at Cooper Talk on Twitter. Go to my website, coopertalk.net. You can find over 990 episodes. Email me at coopertalk.net. Remember, I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guests. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you.